Now for this video, we're going to be looking at the vertical angles congruence theorem. So again, since it's a theorem, we will be actually proving that in our proof below here. And so the the vertical angle congruence theorem says that vertical angles are congruent. And so if you recall from our previous unit, the vertical angles are those that are opposite of each other when angles form an X like this. So here, angle 1 would be congruent to angle 3, and angle 2 would be congruent to angle 4. So now let's go ahead and actually prove this. This one's actually a little bit longer of a proof. So first I am given that angle 1, angle 3 are vertical angles, so I'm going to write that down. Angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles. And that is what I'm given. I want to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So that's going to be at the very bottom here. And so now I need to fill in all of these steps to get there. So let's look at our diagram here and think about what we already know. Well, in our previous video, we were talking about linear pairs. So let's see which angles form linear pairs. Well, I see that angle 1 and angle 2 form a linear pair, because remember, linear pairs are ones that form a line. So angle 1 and angle 2 form a linear pair. And I also see that angle 2 and angle 3 form a linear pair. And I chose these to make note of since I'm wanting to eventually say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So I wanted to relate angle 1 and angle 3 together with something in common. So I chose angle 2. You could have done the same thing with angle 4. And so the reason why I know that is that's the definition of linear pair. So I saw that in the diagram. Okay, so what did we learn about linear pairs? Well, we learned about linear pairs in the previous video, that means that they're supplementary. So that means that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. And angle 2 and angle 3 are supplementary. And that was my linear pair postulate. And so now I'm going to keep going from here. So what does it mean to be supplementary? Well, that means that they add up to equal 180. So that means that measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 is equal to 180. Measure of angle 2 plus measure of angle 3 is equal to 180. Again, that was definition of supplementary. So I somehow want to get rid of this measure of angle 2, this 180, to get that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So how can I relate these two equations? Well, I see that measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 is equal to 180, and that angle 2 and angle 3 is equal to 180. Since they're both equal to 180, that means that they're both equal to one another. So I can then say that measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 is equal to measure of angle 2 plus measure of angle 3. And what I did there was my transitive property. So I'm just going to write transitive. And now to get rid of my angle 2's, I can just subtract measure of angle 2 from both sides. That's my subtraction POE. And so my angles 2's cancel out, so I just end up with measure of angle 1 is equal to measure of angle 3. I just simplified. And since they're equal to one another, that means they're congruent by definition of congruence. So this one was a little bit longer, but I just want to take it step by step using your definitions and your postulates to eventually get to where you want to go. And then finally, we're going to actually apply the vertical angles congruence theorem to actually find the value of x. So remember what we just learned and what we just proved is that vertical angles are congruent. So here I have these vertical angles, 148 and 3x plus 1. Since they are vertical angles, that means that they are therefore congruent. So I can set this up as 3x plus 1 is equal to 148. And then I will solve for x, so subtract 1. And then divide by 3. And I get that x is equal to 49. Here I want to find the value of w. Again, since these are vertical angles, that means that they're congruent. So that means that they are equal to one another. So 5w plus 3 is equal to 98. And I'll solve for w, so subtract 3. And then divide by 5. And I get that w is equal to 19.